Does it have something in it this time?
I didn't have time to put anything in it. Here, I'll put some water in it. Here.
Gosh, friend.
It's magic. It's magic.
Thank
It's
you.
magic.
Thank
It's
you.
magic. Okay.
Chaim!
L'chaim. Cheers.
Over your computer.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna joke and say I just rolled out of bed. I
Well,
just
you probably did because you just like came on at like 8:53, and like I mean for you that's late.
you know what I did? I actually was already out of the house and came back.
Really?
Yeah, I went out to get some more oat milk. I don't know if those of you out there who do not drink regular cow's milk, and
Yeah.
that was the worst moo I've ever heard.
I kind of want to be like like a sheep.
That's
Nah.
anyway. My favorite alternative is oat milk, and I discovered it a while back now. I know it's a very popular thing nowadays, but I cannot have my coffee without my oat milk. And
Oh yeah.
was out, and the store, like literally 2 minutes around the corner, usually has it. So I picked up like 2 big containers.
Oh yeah. No, I always have oat milk in my fridge as well.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, no, oat milk I have every day. I gotta say, it's kind of become like a second protein intake for me, which is really sad because I have like my cereal with oat milk, and then I get my matcha latte every day from Starbucks with oat milk, and then I'm like, oh my god, like that's so long.
I know. And here is our guest this morning.
Yeah, that's nice and prompt. Good morning, my
Good morning.
darling. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, folks?
Good. No, nice to see you.
We
Thank you.
tell our guests that we're recording right away. So just so you know, because there's, not everyone reads the email. So thank you for reading the email.
We are recording. I got it.
Yeah, exactly. If all people to be ready to go, it would be Tanille Geib, who is an incredible dear friend of mine. Dare I say an old friend of mine, because it's been quite a while since
It's been a while.
It's been a while. I was prepubescent when we first met.
So you were, I was just going to say, this makes no sense. I was going to say your voice was lower then, but that doesn't make any sense. It would have been
No, it would have been the opposite. Yes. No, so we didn't have a chance to introduce you yet to Neil. So I'll introduce
great.
you, and then you can
Sure.
fill in the gaps. So
Sure.
my fondest memories of Tanille was when I was a spring young chicken taking yoga classes, and she was the flamboyant, incredibly beautiful unicorn of a diva that ran the studio, and she embraced me from the very first moment that I arrived, and she was like, who are you? And then we ended up working together for several months and groveled in our shared miseries and equally our beautiful triumphs and our shared views on corporatocracy and anarchy.
Yeah.
And from there it just butted, and we've bumped into another since she's moved to the island. You're in Victoria, correct?
Correct. Lekwungen territory. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've bumped into another just through the years, and when she's been in Vancouver, and have always had the longest chats and the most sincere, and it's like time has never passed. And Tanille is a wonderful, amazing entrepreneur, boss woman, if I can say that.
Yeah, I think I'm a boss woman today.
Yeah, and major background in theater and performing arts, production and direction, and creative arts in general, including acting herself, and very much based on many walks of life. But I would say that's one thing that I know, as well as a author, at least one-time author, if not furthermore author, and many different backgrounds in health and sexuality, women's empowerment, and empowerments of folks and people.
Yeah.
Lover of humans.
Lover of humans. That's the one.
Yes.
I did see that on your website. I love that, because that's what we're all about as well. We're all human, and that is our thread that connects us all. It should connect us all of us. But something else that I noticed is you are, I don't know how to put this. I wanted to say a sex therapist, but that's probably
Intimacy coach.
intimacy coach. Okay. Perfect. I I like that better. I like that better.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, you're a sexpert. I'm like, well, not in that way. You know, I can definitely guide people in things of learning around specifics about sex or sexuality in that way. But
Yes.
really, I guess like my passion is getting folks feeling yummy in their own experience, with intimacy with themselves first, and then kind of getting them skills and tools to share that with other people, because that's the tricky part sometimes. Sometimes it's getting intimate with ourselves is the trickiest part, but then connecting that with other folks is sometimes
Absolutely.
difficult.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And we thought with Valentine's Day coming around the corner and on Sunday already, which is amazing. What a beautiful day of the week to have a celebration like Valentine's Day. If it's thought of you immediately, it would be a great opportunity to chat with you and learn about yourself overall as a human being and going into the past and into the present and who knows about the future, especially now. And just learning about, again, intimacy and love and everything else that you have learned through your life and anything you want to share. This platform is open for everything you want to share. Everything.
I feel it. And I'm just going to dive right in there because
Okay, sure.
Yeah, sorry.
Go for it.
I feel like I read that you were fairly, I don't know if confident is the right word, but assertive with yourself at a very young age.
Yeah, I'm feisty.
I love that, but I just mean like pre-teen or even throughout, which is not super common. You know, like a lot of uncertainty and, you know, and not being confident as a teenager. But it sounds like you kind of almost found a bit of your path at that point as well to kind of what you're doing now, which.
Yeah, I think it's all related in my life. I think yes, I was very independent when I was young, and my parents had to go through some sort of that. But like, I was like a good kid, independent, you know? So there was like some stress there because I thought I was entitled to more freedom because I was such a good kid. But I definitely tested my parents on that one. But I remember one of my earliest like definite decisions for like bettering myself was at age 9. And I decided that I wanted to go to this creative arts center for school. And I didn't even tell my parents. I went and picked up an application, wrote an essay, and basically told my mom to sign this paper because I'm going to that school next year.
Amazing. Yeah.
So yeah, there was that. And I think along that time too, I was struggling with a lot of stuff emotionally. And I just remember like, I think I was 10 years old being like, I need to go to counseling. That's something I need to do for myself. So I started going on a healing journey quite young, I guess. And I think that school particularly, just was really nourishing for who I was and where I wanted to go. A lot of it was like, it says it's a creative arts center, but really it was developing our critical thinking skills. And we got to apply our actual knowledge to the arts, right? So for example, say you're learning the rock cycle, you know, in science class, and you would have to go and do independent study for 2 weeks. Maybe you would get to do group study for another 2 weeks. Then you would have to apply it to an art form like a dance or sculpture or something. And then you actually had to present it to your fellow peers and actually like know the knowledge, you know, not just like, here's A, B, and C to like check off.
Yeah.
So I think that was like my most important schooling actually in my life thus far. High school was a bore compared to that. But yeah, that was a definite place that I really learned how to nourish my brain and express myself. And we were a very lucky grade. I don't know if grades before or after us, but we were quite bonded. I know that there was like, you know, middle school hierarchies a little bit, but I kind of blended in all of those groups and I didn't really feel, I know there were differences, you know, And people probably felt that more than I did, but I also didn't put up with like bull crap from the more popular kids. Like if they were teasing someone, I was like, stop it, that's rude. You know, like yeah, so I think that socially as well, I had a really amazing experience, and some of those people are still like some of my best friends to this day, so I feel very fortunate to have gone through that experience.
No kidding. Did you grow up in Vancouver?
No, I grew up in Alberta. I was born in Medicine Hat, and when I was 7 years old, moved to Calgary and was there on and off between the two cities growing up. But I moved to Vancouver, I think I was 23. After like 5 years of professional theater, I came to Vancouver. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Like, what started you in theater? Because I know that I met you when you were already, of course, established, right? We never really had a chance to talk, really. Like we did.
What did I do?
Yeah, like what started the theater? Because I know you mentioned a little bit from the elementary school portion, but then did you do theater in high school, or did it come after that? Or?
I did do theater in high school. I was really frustrated with high school. It was very boring, and yeah, when I was doing grade 12 drama, I guess, I didn't really like acting, to be honest. It's not my go-to, but there was something about having your vision brought up on stage really attracted to me. So we were doing a directing module. So of course I was like, I want to be a director. I love leading. And I just didn't find or resonate with any plays that were already written. So I decided to write my own play.
Yeah.
And there was like swear words in it, so I had to go and get permission from the like principal to use it in public, just like performances. And he approved it. Like I used the word, can I swear on your
you could say whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, there you go. So I used the word like fuck or fucking twice, but I explained why the character needed to say it in those specific ways. It wasn't just like shooting the shit. And he approved it, which is great. And then I was like, well, you know, none of my best friends come to my school, so just having like a lunchtime performance wasn't good enough for me. So I pitched that like we should do a dessert night dessert box theater thing, and we could like sell tickets and do a fundraiser, and like, that's kind of when I started being a producer. And I worked really a lot with MBF, who is a musician, Michael Bernard Fitzgerald, and that was kind of like our big kind of like project to the year end, and we sold like 300 tickets.
Oh my God.
Whoa, of course you did. Yes.
And it was really fun. There were some consequences to it though, and that was really difficult. I mostly write from my own experience. So I'm a creative brain that I guess takes my life and presents it in like a creative, interesting way. I'm not like a person that makes up fiction and then presents it in an artistic way. And so I think I definitely hurt some feelings as my process.
I get that.
So that was that. But again, it is definitely who I am, and I don't I guess hold back from what I'm going through and how I share my life and that kind of thing. So that was like my first theater foray. But even in my grade 12 year, like I was applying for chemistry in university. I really like math and science. I really, really like the application of it. And I was also applying to like art school to become like a, I guess, 2D painting artist or something. And then I applied for an apprenticeship at Alberta Theatre Projects. And I wasn't really leaning towards that, but then I found out that I wasn't qualified for student loans to go to university. And that was very stressful. Even though I was working full time since I was 13 years old, basically, and going to school, I just didn't have those kinds of funds to put myself through university at that time.
Yeah.
And then I went to Alberta Theatre Projects and was immersed in professional theater for a year, doing all kinds of things, from like data entry to resource development, which was fundraising, to assistant stage management, working with the producer who's still there, Diane Goodman. She taught me a lot. Yeah, so I just got kind of immersed into that and into the community, which I fell in love with. And it was definitely a hard year. We were making only $75 a week for being an apprentice. And yeah, so I was still trying to work full time on top of that. I was running I think at that point I was the gift registry manager at like Home Outfitters or something.
Oh my God.
And working like 50 hours a week at the theater.
Wow.
But yeah, I kind of fell in love with theater there. And it was I think I'm really loving the idea of live presence and the connection everyone makes in that live space. And I guess the delving into human condition is pretty cool too. Like there's a lot of good juicy questions in that format.
How are you, because when you just hit the nail on the head about like, you know, really craving that live kind of experience. And now, what are you doing to supplement that, or how are you doing? What are you, you know, it's everyone's got their own shtick that they're pivoting to or
adapting, morphing,
exactly.
Yeah, Zoom's my friend, but it's like really hard for me. I'm an extrovert on top of that. And so, yeah, this pandemic has really challenged me. There's days that I just sit and cry because I miss people so much. Like Lover of Humans isn't like new. It's like my whole life. And yeah, in the work that I do, I'm so fortunate and lucky that I get to still have like connections. Like I have one-on-one clients that do intimacy coaching work with me. And so, yes, that format is fine. Like my office downtown just sits empty most of the times. I don't see people in person. So I get a lot of joy from that. And I'm fortunate again that my career can pivot to online. It's definitely not my desire though, right? I'm working with a marketing business coach as well. And like, I'm going to be putting like my 17 workshops online so people can just download it and digest it in their own way, which makes it so much more accessible. And I want my work to be accessible to people. But it's also really sad for me because I love like workshops with real humans and all of these things. So it's definitely challenging and not good for like my literal molecules feel like they're changing into something that I'm pretty like not down with.
Fighting.
Yeah.
Someone actually asked me recently that I hadn't seen for a while at our little coffee shop. I'm in Vernon, so I'm in Okanagan. But I was driving and I rolled down my window. I was like, hey, how's it going? And one of the first questions he asked me was, are you an introvert or an extrovert? Because it's almost like, how are you doing? Like that's almost what he's basing it on. How are you doing in relation to if you're an introvert or an extrovert? And it's something I never really considered or thought about during this pandemic time. And you just mentioned the word extrovert. So it's interesting to see kind of how those types of different people are doing during the pandemic. And I don't know if there's such who's doing worse, who's doing better. Like that's not really, it's just different, but
it's different.
It's different. Yeah. I mean, my partner is an ambivert, but really has been thriving in like being at home doing her music for, 70 hours a week or whatever she does. So she's really thriving as her more introverted self. She's like, what? I don't have to like show up for people and do all these busy things. And I just get to work on myself and my craft and my business. And I'm like, yeah, you look pretty good. She's pretty happy.
It's amazing how we adapt, right? I mean, I'm definitely an ambivert for sure. And so there are parts of me that are very happy not talking to people. And then as long as I have a little bit of interaction through the day in different ways, no matter what it is, I'm good. But then if you're a pure extrovert, it's very, very, very debilitating. And you have to really figure out a way, like not you, but like any extrovert has to figure out the ways to how how to adapt, because
Yeah.
we're kind of in a situation where we can't not adapt.
Yeah, and I'm such like a strict rule follower, right? So this is like a very fascinating time for me. I love like following rules, but then I'm really annoyed that we're not like free people. So it's like this really interesting thing of like really learning like democracy does not mean freedom. That's a big learning in the pandemic for me. And also I really want to like protect myself and my family and every human from something that can be deadly and intense. So I'm following the rules very strictly, and it's also like very like expanding my brain on what it means to be human and living in a society where there are complexities and rules to garner us. So I'm not even thinking about pandemic stuff anymore. It's like I'm thinking about like the way in which we, as some of us that are, Canadians, move through the world and trying to understand that, yeah, what privileges we have and like what things do we not have control over.
Yeah.
Super fascinating stuff to me.
Yeah.
Has that inspired anything in your creative realm of not just your intimacy work being transitioned into digital work, but has that inspired you in your creative writing way at all, in terms of production or storytelling or capturing the public perception of what reality is, and perhaps the delusion of what they think reality is? Has that inspired you in any way?
Not, I mean, it's inspiring, but I haven't done anything with it yet. I think like, yeah, my creative self, I think also the pandemic's healed a lot for me, like in the sense of like me being an actual workaholic. And it's so funny. I was in 4 years of counseling trying to work on my addiction to work. And then the pandemic hit and all of my community projects got nixed. So, which is hard for me emotionally, but it also like cured my like addiction to work in a lot of ways. So I think just this year coming, from a place where I was like basically overworking myself since I was 13 years old. And I think I'm turning 35 this year.
I understand that.
Yeah. So mid 30s, this is interesting. And creatively, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I think that, yeah, it's been a minute since I've worked on a creative project, and I'm curious about when that will come back to me at the moment. Yeah.
I think everyone in this year has just been trying to keep their head above water, so to speak. Just try to, what we just said, adapt and see just where we all fit, because it's just so new and strange and all those kinds of things. But just because, speaking of Valentine's Day coming up, and being an intimacy coach, how did that come across, or how did that come about for yourself with all the beautiful things that you've been doing?
Yeah. Well, I delved into human sexuality in college. My creative writing courses, that's why I moved to Vancouver, was to go to creative writing school. And I just thought everything was really boring, the writing classes themselves, because they were like, this is like the canon of this and this and this. And I'm like, yeah, but it's all been done. Like, I already know my voice. I've been writing since I was 7. Like, yes, you can like teach me mechanics and structure, right? But like, I'm not gonna like try and be the next like white guy's version of success, I guess. And so I just started taking anything to do with human stuff. And so I started taking like human sexuality in like the health sciences area. I took like art history and women's health and all these different little, basically any faculty that would have me and anything to do with sexuality, I studied it. And from there, it was kind of born of like me writing my own creative nonfiction erotica cookbook. And that's the one Hero was referring to. That I
still have it.
Yeah, it's really sweet, isn't it?
Yes.
And so basically the format was, and I started writing this in college about my first love, And basically it's like one chapter is a love story, whether it's like hard or exciting or stressful at times, and it's related to a meal we cook together, and then at the end there's a recipe, and it also has like erotic photos of me in it. There's art and poetry. It's kind of like just like a voila, this is a young woman's story about love, food, and sexuality, and that kind of
Cool. Can you still buy it?
Yeah, you can on my website. Yeah. It's really cute. And I am really still proud of it, even though I've like grown so much. The next version of what I wanted to put out, if I was still doing that series or that lineage, was it's called Love and Cooking. And I wanted to do like Love and Cooking, now gluten-free and penis-free, because like I've grown into a baby queer, and then also like a lot of my dietary things have changed because I found out I had a autoimmune disease. And all these different things. So I have evolved a lot as a human, and as we all do. But I think the story has a lot of beauty in it for people that are not typical beauties. I really have always loved my body. I'm really lucky that way. I've not had the I guess I've just not been a conventional beauty type. I'm curvy. I'm unique looking, but I really love the way I look. And so I'm unapologetic in that book about it. So I think for young women folk that, and you think of it like now there's amazing body positivity movements. But when I put that book out, there wasn't, women with my body doing naked yoga in a book, right? So it's it was pre that, I guess, the body positive movement, and then I also think there's like some sweetness and tenderness that's really cool for like young adults to connect into, I guess, on first love.
First of all, that's incredibly brave, and I don't think I would be brave enough to do that now. I'm 38. I just turned 38, and like I'm still not. I mean, full transparency, I still don't love my body. Still don't love myself completely. Honestly, we talk about anxiety. Like, I'm just totally honest. We talk about anxiety on this show all the time, and all that kind of stuff. I think you hit the nail on the head about, yes, body positivity definitely is more prevalent now, and that's beautiful. It's wonderful. But with social media, it's still, and Hero and I've talked about this, quite a few times. Like, I'll still be scrolling and see like all the filters that we use now.
Right.
So like filters to make, all this go away, the acne and the dark circles and the wrinkles and that's still an obsession,
Absolutely.
and for men and women. It's not just so I mean, how do you coach people in this era of social media, and how, like, do you talk to people about marketing, and do you have clients?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like
and again, this is like I definitely have education in intimacy and all these things, but it's a lot of life experience I bring to my practice. It's kind of like, I say it's like talk and resource based. So like, yes, I have like 10 years of like articles and videos and things to have different perspectives and challenge the way that you're thinking in that. But a lot of my work as well is to like share the tools and skills I've developed as a person. So I remember, when I was quite young, really being into like Cosmo Mag, right? Because there's all these quizzes and stuff. But then I realized like the more that I got into them, the more I started not liking myself, and I was very aware of it. And so I just stopped doing it. Like, I stopped buying those magazines. I'm like, this makes me feel like shit or inadequate, and I don't want to live that way. Right. And so, I was very lucky to like have some sort of mechanism in me that was like, hey, this doesn't feel good, and why are we doing this? So yeah, I definitely, if I'm working, say, with body image with people, you know, we look at anything from, you know, I have to watch so much Netflix just to keep up with like what my clients are digesting and like thinking about themselves or relationships or sexuality like that. Like I'm really into like the social context of sex and our habits around that. So I'm really obsessed with like current media and stuff. So current media, how we like, what is, I teach like a lot of porn literacy, right? So like the development of like, what is our attachment to it? What do we see? How do we like, I always ask my clients, like, you know, with porn or media, is it helping you connect with yourself or others, or is it bringing disconnection in your life? So if it's more on the disconnection, like how do we shift our habits and even like rewiring our brains on how that story is with those things to have more connection in our lives. I think porn is great. I think there's like really beautiful things that we can have from it. It isn't what human intimacy is. And there's not a lot of education and support around having healthy relationships with porn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I love starting like working with youth around these kinds of topics as well. But yeah, I'll tell people being like, you know, who do you follow on Instagram? Do you follow people that, you know, resonate with you or on similar journeys or like inspire you? Or are they people that like make you feel like shit every day? Well, guess what? Like change what you're following. Yeah. You don't need those constant messages that are like making you feel like you aren't worthy. Like, yeah. So definitely critical thinking around media. Absolutely.
Wow.
And there's so much, I mean, that's a huge component, you know, these days. And I love that you're getting in there at an early age, because God, I wish I had that at that age. Like I almost feel like it's like, who's more screwed? Because we've been conditioned a certain way for like so long, or a young generation that's pre-millennial who are getting all these tools now, and it's okay to talk about these things now. It's okay. Or is it too much? And that's a huge,
it's fascinating.
And then there's the trauma that's underneath everything, because that's trauma. I mean, and people are using and talking about the word trauma up the yin yang these days, because that's, you know, people are just becoming a lot more open and vulnerable about talking about their trauma. And that's got to be obviously a huge component to body dysmorphia or positivity or whatever is going on. So
yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I think like the people that like spark me in inspiration for the youth are any queer youth. I mean, I'm blown away. Like when I walk into, you know, a classroom to talk about consent or gender or sexuality, it's like I'm blown away with the knowledge and skills and tools they already have, the resiliency that they have, and the communities that they're building. And I mean, I'm talking from a specific lens. Like I work mostly in cities or communities that have bigger schools. I have worked in like a couple of more remote communities that these things are difficult. Yeah, so I have that lens, but also the internet is a great connector, and people have way more community. Like if you're queer or gay or trans in a small town and there's no one like you there, you do actually now have this potential like source, this community that maybe will give you hope for your future, right? So I just think it's like I'm blown away. There was one school I worked with, and someone knew by the time they were, you know, in grade 11 that they're trans and polyamorous and this and this. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know what that was when I was your age, you know, truly. And so, yeah, I just feel very fortunate to support those people's journeys in those ways. Yeah, absolutely. It's an honor.
Wow. There's a lot to learn from that generation, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So much.
Absolutely.
Always being a student.
Yeah, that too.
Always. I mean, and again, I know that it's not necessarily your primary outlet, but you are a yoga teacher as well. And you and I share some of the same education, and especially the therapeutic and restorative side of things. So I'm curious, and I'm sure they overlap because yoga is a life skill even more than a physical practice. But how do you ever find about the yogic philosophies or the ethics, let's say, and do you blend those into your intimacy toolkit, especially to youth and people that maybe aren't exposed to that, and kind of teaching them those skills of how to, not be violent to themselves, to be truthful, to moderate their energy, like things like that.
Yeah. So when I'm fortunate enough, excuse me one second. When I'm fortunate enough to actually be integrated into the actual education of youth, so a lot of times they're like, come in for an assembly for 90 minutes and tell them everything about the thing. And I'm like, okay, good luck. Like, this is really going to be effective. But if I can actually come in a few times a year or like a month or something and actually develop those connections, we can kind of get a little bit, I guess, deeper. And sometimes I'll blend. What I love doing is like blending all of the things in one. So we'll do like meditation or yoga or whatever. We'll bring it into body image. We'll get them to write a script and perform, right? So like, so this is kind of like the stuff that I was taught is like, okay, so like, let's learn about a topic about gender, and then we like talk about it. We see some videos about it. We like critically think about it. And then it's like, can we bring it to something? Can we share it in some way artistically? Unfortunately, it's really hard to get into schools for this, not because of the content, but because of time and resources and etc. And now, of course, we're in a pandemic, so it's even more difficult. But yeah, giving them like the chance to like learn communication skills in high school.
Oh yeah,
pretty important stuff.
So important.
So I definitely bring that in. And I think with like intimacy coaching work with adults, some yoga stuff creeps in. Some mindfulness stuff. And
I can't imagine the layers that there are with an adult, working with an adult in comparison to working with a youth, and how much longer it might take to get, an adult to the level that you maybe want to get them to as well. I mean, I guess the top
what they want
different.
I mean,
But adding on to that though, Rachel, because like you just talked about like youth and adult, and I've got to chime in here because I think, and I know you're not saying one is more or less, but I think as you're saying, they're so different because adults are conditioned and already so-called formed, right?
Yes.
So people like, I think the three of us, we're never formed. We're always changing and growing. We just might have certain things that are more set because we've done that part already and now we're up here.
Yeah.
But youth are so fastly growing, especially with all the way that even, because we're all the two of you are slightly in the same kind of era. I'm still kind of in that millennial phase, I guess you want to call it, but still not like I didn't have a cell phone until I was 12, right? It wasn't like I had a cell phone when I was 5 and I was glued to a touchscreen with the internet. I had video games, but it wasn't like I was glued to the internet at 5. Kids now literally are like this with their parents' technology. And so when they get conditioned by the media, Tanille, I can imagine like the amount of layers and the contrast of adult and youth mindset and what their beliefs, what they think or what they know are completely different, right? Like it's a totally different set of skills that you have to have.
Yeah. And one thing I say to my clients when they want to work with me, it's a slow process, like I'm a coach for a reason. If you're coming in and want to work on body image stuff, I ask, well, how many years have you been struggling with your body image? If they're like, 20, and it's like, guess what? It's not going to be gone in 2 months, right? Like if those stories and that repetitive belief in yourself, that is going to take time to unwind and give yourself opportunities for new stories, right? And new ways of feeling and thinking. And so usually when I work with clients that have deep work to do like that, I guess it takes a couple of years in that way. And I've also said to clients, like, I don't want to be your person forever. Like I want you to grow and evolve and have your own skills and tools so that you're not necessarily going to need me forever. So I try and put that, caveat. I'm different from like a regular therapist in that way. Like I have found my therapist. I am keeping her as long as I can, right, in my life. Yeah, so I really like to work on specific intimate things with someone, and then hopefully they can go out and like utilize those skills and those things for their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. What's one thing that, just because people who are listening or watching this maybe have never delved into considering changing their body image, or they've just thought that, this is just the way I'm gonna be the rest of my life. This is how I see myself, and there's no way of getting out of this. Is there, I know it's hard to kind of pinpoint one thing that they can do, or if there's a first step, is there I don't know, some sort of tool? I feel like people who are taking that first step, it's hard.
Yeah. I mean, the media stuff is a lot. That could be like step 1 through 5, digesting like, what is your relationship with media? How does it make you feel about yourself? All those things. I like to kind of ask questions like, when was like a first memory where you felt like ashamed about your body? And sometimes that's very young. Sometimes that's 4 years old. Sometimes that's, 10 years old, right? Like, and then also ask them questions on the flip side too. Like, when was there glimmers of like happiness of your body, or and sometimes that's very small and there's not a lot of examples, but sometimes there are, right, those little glimmers. And this goes with like, I mean, not just body image, but sexual shame, like say if you grew up with sexual shame, well, when were those first memories? When did those first things come up, or those messages? Again, sometimes it's very young, depending on how we grew up and where we grew up. And then also, but like, when was the first time you felt like maybe a glimmer of sexual acceptance or expression, or, because those are also very important and vital. And sometimes like feeling into that or understanding those like glimmers of yumminess can help us, build stronger relationship with those things.
Yeah.
So that would maybe be a first questionnaire step for yourself around kind of anything. Like, be body image, it can be pornography, it could be sexual intimacy, that kind of stuff. Like, when did you feel icky or weird or hard about those things? And was there ever a time that it felt there might be something that's beautiful in there? Yeah.
I love that so much, because I think we get so stuck on all the negative. It's so easy to have those negative moments imprinted on our minds more than the positive, but we have to realize that there have been, like, it's not like there have never been positives. There have been positives. It's just harder for you to remember them. So yeah.
So maybe just like take some moments today and just like see when does the beauty pop up, and how could you support and nourish more times like that. Very difficult sometimes, depending on people's life situations, but it could be a possibility to nourish.
Absolutely.
It's true.
Yeah.
Would you say, I mean, you probably have, again, tons of tools, but for your own self or for people that you really care about, like, you're just helping a friend out, it's not a client, like, what are the few things that you really like to recommend as little tips or little tricks or things that you might initially offer them to think about? It's like, oh, Tanille, I just do like, just give me your top 3 things. Just like, yeah, okay, here are my top 3 things. Like, how would you address that?
I talk about compassion a lot. So I think it's like, there's always going to be the ebbs and flows. And that sounds a little bit cliche, but it's about how do we show up for compassion for oneself or others in our lives. Knowing that like, we're not always going to be able to do the thing or not be in our shame or whatever. whatever, right? And if we're in that place, like not allowing it to just become that cycle, that negative feedback cycle, being like, whoa, like, okay, I realize I'm having a stressful time or a hard time. Where can I find compassion? Where can I like take a moment or ask for what I need, or call up a friend and talk about it, or anything like that, right? Depending on who you are, what you need for comfort and that kind of thing. So these things that I deal with people in general, and then with my friendships or that kind of thing, it's where can we show up with some softness as we go through the day, or that kind of thing. I'm trying to think of anything else
now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then just I guess I really like cringy deep honesty sometimes. Like I say, like I think I have a really positive vibe that I put out there, but when I say something, a reflection or a mere statement to my good friends or to my clients, like they're usually pretty thankful to hear it. So sometimes you just need that outside perspective to be like, hey, what about this? Because like I know I've needed that in my life 100%. And I think that's why I value my friendships for so long, is because like all of these different people will give me different versions of myself that I really need to connect with. And, it's an honor that they're along the journey with me as well, in those ways. So I think, friends or community or family can really gift you back your presence sometimes. Like, well, Tanille would usually say this thing, like, or you've told me this in the past about yourself. Does that still resonate with you? Or, those kinds of things. So people reflecting back to you, maybe some of your truths or that you need to hear, that maybe you've been distracted or down a tough path recently.
Yeah.
And a lot of people might, like, I think I would take that hopefully in a good light, but I think a lot of people, when they're face to face with themselves in that respect, might push away from it and be like, well, fuck you. Like, because they're not ready to deal with it, I guess. They're not ready to heal, not ready to grow.
Yeah. And I think that's why I became an intimacy coach and made it my profession. Because people are actually coming to me for that support and that honesty and that connection in that specific way. I don't need to do that to my friends and my like past lovers and stuff. So I think I found a very healthy way to have boundaries met in a way that like I can really show up for someone and give them my all. And it's in a structure that they also really want that in their lives. And so that's a beautiful thing that I've cultivated with people. So mostly with friends, I do listen and shut up until they ask for my opinion on stuff now.
Fair enough. So are you taking new clients for people out there?
People out there. Yeah, absolutely. I'm honored to do that. If you are a youth or queer or trans, I have sliding scale options out there. And I'm particularly really interested in working with couples right now, talking about Valentine's Day. This stuff in the pandemic is fascinating with couples. Yeah, like they're like in close proximity for the first time maybe in their relationship, and it's just really juicy stuff. It's so good. I mean, it's probably tough for their experience. It definitely is, but the way I can show up is like I'm honored, and it's fascinating stuff. And so I definitely have space in my my week for new clients if that's something you desire. So you can go on my website and you can look at all kind of the topics of my wheelhouse, and anything from like relationship structures, body image, porn. We've talked about all of these different things. If you just want to heal some stuff that you've grown up with, I can support that. And then if anything, like if I'm not the one for you, I have tons of referrals. We are so blessed on this coast in Canada that we have a lot of amazing practitioners doing a lot of different work in human sexuality. And so if I'm not the right fit for someone, I absolutely will try and find people the right fit.
And I didn't really thank you for mentioning the couples thing.
Yeah.
Because that's a whole other topic of conversation that we could probably talk hours about what the fuck this pandemic's done to couples. Where am I? No, my husband's not in that room anymore, and I wouldn't bring up personal stuff, but it definitely has not
tricky.
Last year.
Yeah, it's new. It's very new.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where the pandemic's kind of it's pushed people into their discomfort unwillingly and unsuspectedly. Like it's just we weren't ready to deal with things perhaps that we were needing to deal with, and now it's like a slap in the face. Like no, you got to deal with this now.
Yeah,
choice.
Absolutely.
I mean, and so with that being said, actually, do you have you had more couples on your roster? Yeah.
Than I ever have. And not necessarily like traditional couples too. Like I work with polyamorous folks or open folks as well. But yeah, I've been seeing a lot more partnerships come through the door lately. And it's just an honor. I think that, mostly everything to do with partnership, it has to do with communication or the assumptions we're making about someone because they've done something once one way. And I really just try and cultivate a space where they can have those honest conversations in front of someone that's like their cheerleader, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really exciting to work with partnerships right now.
Hero, are you listening? Are you getting some advice?
Listening. Oh, absolutely. Always. Always. You're in the wall. You're in the headphone. Ear to the camera.
Yeah.
I was just teasing because of your new partnership. So.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes. Is there anything you want to ask, Rachel?
No.
One thing I think is Jewcy that I'll share that I've been like really trying to suss out with couples in particularly pandemic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like we used to always have like certain roles if you're nesting partners living together, like, someone would do this thing and someone would do this thing and it was just kind of accepted. Yeah. Like do a check-in on what works now, right? So if you're the person that always took out the garbage, like maybe that doesn't resonate with you anymore, that you're like, it's in your face or something. And then also like, if it's your big need to do that thing in the house, maybe you could be the one to do it instead of like pressuring or getting your person to be like, this should be your top priority. It's like, maybe it's not their top priority right now. Yeah. And if it's really that important to you, please go ahead and do it.
Yes. Yes.
I like that.
Completely.
Right.
Oh my God. No, completely. Like if even like last night, again, I think as Rachel just mentioned, like I just started seeing someone and we just made it official like a couple of days ago. Yeah. And we were at my place and he was cooking and he looks at the dishwasher and says, "Oh, is that dishwasher clean?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Here, let's unload it." So there's room for me to put the other stuff in. I mean, I would have just left it. Perfect example. It wasn't like an urgency or like, why don't you have your dishwasher unwashed? It was just like, no, I'll help you out with that. Like, why not? It's going to take 2 seconds. It's not a big dishwasher. Let's just do it together. I'm like,
absolutely.
Right. It's a perfect example.
Yeah. And if no one wants to do the chore, can it wait a minute? Like, yeah, you don't want to get things out of control. Like, I get it, but we're all in a very new, weird time. And like, if the vacuuming doesn't get done for another 2 days, like what is going to go wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so true. Like the dust bunnies are not going to corral together into a dust bunny army and then cause a fire because they're going to combust on you. Like it's okay. They can gather.
It's going to be a couple days. It's going to be fine.
it's always like, what is, I try to ask myself, even in my most anxious times, is this really important? Is it actually important? Is this, really urgent?
Yeah.
Is this, like, just stop and think for a second. Is this really important? It's just, we don't give ourselves enough time. And I think that hopefully we've had a little bit more time, a lot of us now. We're not as, jumping from one thing to the next, that we're trying to figure out what to do in those moments of action and reaction. Like there's hopefully a lot of us are finding that space that exists between those two things, right? So,
well, and also like getting to the deeper thing of it. Like if I'm saying to my partner, like something that they didn't finish or do or something, what am I really saying? Like sometimes I go to my partner and be like, I just need to be held right now. Can you just do that? So instead of like, kind of looking at the nitpicky things of how to get that connection met, let's be honest about the connection that we desire. Yeah. And if your partner can't give that to you right now, it's not always up to them to fulfill that. And now we're in closer quarters or seeing each other way more. We can't rely on our friends for that. It is still our responsibility to get our needs met. It's not always up to our partners to get our needs met. What I like to coach people on is like, you can play in desires with each other and wants and see if those like align with each other. And that's where you can go down. But if it comes up to your need, that's like definitely a personal journey. And yes, it's nice because sometimes needs meet up, or, ooh, this need could be a want. And so I'm going to share it in this way. Mm-hmm. And then someone else is like, oh my gosh, I totally want that thing too. Awesome. That's nice.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case. And so how do we take more self-responsibility even in, partnership? That's some big stuff there.
That is some big stuff.
So you're so right about like how especially because we're living in such close quarters and we're supposed to not be going out there and mingling and even getting back into our safe six or whatever you want to call it. But it just means that we are putting everything on that person.
Yeah.
And I thank you for saying that. It's like, that person, I don't know what I'm trying to say, that you can't put all the pressure on that one. Like no one can take on all the pressure of one person, and vice versa. And that's
it's not fun. Like, is it fun to do that?
No.
Pretty stressful.
It is, and that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. So it's, and these Zoom kind of conversations, and sometimes they only go so far. Like I'm starting to get pretty fucking antsy.
Yeah. I resonate.
So yeah, I know you were talking about that in the beginning. So I try to, go like, what can we do? We go out for walks if we can, those types of things. Like, what do you tell your clients, couples right now to?
Well, I ask them like, what are some of the things that bring you joy, that you can do for yourself? What little moments can you like steal away for yourself? For me, like, I'm just going to go personal because I can't really talk about client stuff. But, for me, I've been noticing like this like cringy slog of some sort, right? With the extroverted stuff. And so I was like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to ask for my needs to be met. So I just like put on my Facebook, like, people from 8:15 to 8:45, 5 nights a week, like, I'm free to hang out and chat. Like, I love talking on the phone. It's one of my favorite things to do. And so like, I'm like, I can do Zoom, I can do phone, like I can do any type of connection. Let's do it. And like, honestly, most nights I have someone to chat with and I'm like way happier. And then I go to my partner afterwards being like, hi, how's it going? Yeah. And she's like, what happened? I'm like, I just talked to a friend. And she's like, awesome.
Right? But that human interaction, that loving of humans is so important though. And I get that when I don't have that interaction, even if it's with the same people, I feel a lot lower energy.
Me too.
I feel like I don't have connection to someone because you can only connect to yourself so much until you get fucking tired of yourself.
Yeah. And then one tip, like, I mean, Valentine's, corporate, blah, blah, I could take that down for a minute, but, you know, it's really healthy to make intentional date time, even though we're in a pandemic. And if you're living with someone who is your partner, like, make a date happen. You know, like, even if it's just like a movie night at home, like, make that popcorn, make it intentional that, like, my phone is off for 2 hours and I'm actually just going to be with you intentionally, not just because we're in a like lockdown situation. I think, yeah, just being intentional with our partners and our time is really helpful during this pandemic as well. Like, okay, like, yeah, I can commit to like a weekly date, whether that's like a quick hike or like we have tea together, or, you know, yeah, last week we just watched Hump, which is a amateur porn film festival that Dan Savage puts on. You know, we usually go to Seattle and Portland every year to see that, me and my friends. We've been going for years and years. But, you know, now it's virtual. But even doing that, and we like set up a projector for it and just like had just time and space to connect. And it was so fun. Like, it's so fun just to do like something intentional.
Yeah.
And I think that can help some just intimacy in general, and not just wait for Valentine's once a year.
It's true, or an anniversary, or anything that's an annual occasion, right?
Yeah. I do monthly anniversaries with my current partner, so I know we're over 2 years, but we just know the 20th of every month we do something built-in special, because
I love that.
If you do, like, pick a number, it doesn't matter what number it is, right? Yeah. Just like every month I'm gonna like dedicate to being like, hey, you're special. Like, thank you for being with me. And like, where are we going the next month? What do you want to do? That kind of thing. Really helpful to do check-ins and intentional things. And I learned that from being polyamorous for 9 years, is that like these emotional like just making check-ins so normal, you know, and then bringing that skill to monogamous relationships is just really beautiful. Like, monogamy says you're supposed to ride this escalator in these ways, go, but it's like, actually, should we check in? Like, and it can be the things about like the chores and these kinds of things, and all of that stuff connects to the actual like intimacy and pleasure that you have with your partner.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, check-ins are really, really important, and intentional time of like connecting, as opposed to the only time I connect with you is like dealing with kids and garbage and all that. Like, that doesn't like fun. Like, do something fun.
True, because couples forget, they meet and they have that kind of honeymoon phase, they, you know, fall in love, and then it's just them. And then if they do follow the familial route, which is beautiful, I mean
yeah,
just because, like, I'm not a secret, like, it's not a secret, I fucking hate kids, so like I don't want them. But if you have kids, then yeah, sometimes it brings you closer initially, but then it tears you apart, because it just goes right into the selfless act of service. But you forget about serving yourself and the person that created that kid with you. You just don't have that sense of unionship anymore.
Yeah.
It's very tough. It's very tough.
It's a lot of work, relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And for someone like myself who's been, I'm like going like this, who's been in the same relationship for over a decade, you know, it's, though, like you said, those monthly dates or check-ins, like, I was like, he did come home. I don't know where he went, but anyway, I don't remember that honeymoon phase. Like, I do. It's a very faint memory, but it's something like, you know, to try to bring an essence of that back in, or Tanille, it sounds like you have a routine of almost acknowledging your relationship every month, which is important, and more important as you get on more years together, I think, too, even more so.
Yeah. And you can bring cake, like, you know, it's like, I don't really like sweets much, but my partner really does. And like, I like them, but they're not like a thing I crave. Let's say that. I'm more of a savory person. I like savory snacks. But it's like a time to be like, okay, like, I'm intentionally like going to get you a cupcake, or like, you know, something. It's just like, why not bring something sweet to someone once a month.
Yeah. And you've been with your partner for quite a while now, right?
Yeah, we're over the 2-year mark, so it's not too long, but it's felt very long.
Yeah.
in pandemic times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a joy. It's my first like queer relationship.
Right.
In that particular way, I guess. I guess all my relationships were queer in a sense because I was queer, but they were very heteronormative presenting in the past. And so, yeah, this is my first time delving into that, and it's brought such beauty and freedom that I've never felt before.
Oh,
Really, really gorgeous. Yeah, and it's interesting too because in my different communities, I'm met differently. Like when I came to Victoria, Lekwungen territory, I started volunteering at queer things and then running queer things, and like people think I'm like this like super uber like queer person, and I'm like, I'm just a baby queer. And then, when I go back to Vancouver and I'm like, oh, my girlfriend's gonna come to the show or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, a bunch of my girlfriends are coming too. And I'm like, right, you all think I'm straight, got it. Because before that's what I presented as, and these kinds of things. So it's interesting to see like different communities that I've been in and how people perceive me. And really, I'm just Tanille, and I don't really like labels to begin with, but it's interesting seeing the way that people treat me based on like what they perceive to be my sexual orientation or relationship structures.
Totally right.
Really fascinating. Yeah.
It's true. I love Rachel and I kind of look at each other, we're like, hero, Rachel.
It looked like you were going to say something, and I think
and I thought you were going to say something.
I think it's because we also try not to talk over each other, but we can definitely do that. And it was Zoom, which is kind of frustrating. Is like, I don't know if you've noticed this, maybe you have with Zoom. It's like, especially if you're recording, if someone is sort of talking over someone else, it won't record that voice. Right. So sometimes you'll see me going like this, but you can't hear what I'm saying because Hero's talking, because it only picks up that one microphone anyway.
It's so funny. But yeah, I mean, I don't know where the hour went, and I am so excited that you could come on and chat with us, and thanks for being so receptive immediately to my communication too. Really makes a big difference. And yeah, just to be able to be a part of your life kind of through the years, and you part of my life, it's just, I feel so like I've learned so much from you over the years for sure, and still those memories and thoughts come into my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that time, things like that. But as we wrap, I just wanted to kind of check in with you and see some of the fun things we like to ask is if there's anything you want to share or plug, things that are going on in your brand, in your community, and some things you already have. But as an official kind of parting, this is me, this is what I do. Feel free to leave that with us here as well.
Yeah, I think, I guess like just wherever you're at in your pandemic journey, just have compassion for yourself, ask for the things that would be better for you. If people are like, yes, they can do that, great. If they can't, well, ask someone else or figure out a solution for yourself, and then just have more compassion for where you're at. As for professional stuff, you can check out my website. It's tanillegeib.ca. I'm sure we'll put the link there for you. I can take more clients on currently, and then I'm launching new things that are exciting in the next couple months. I'm gonna have like a membership place, so you can like there's a free pandemic dating guidebook that I've written that's coming out. It's short, but it's like helpful for people that are like, how do I get connection in this kind of a time? So that's coming out, a free ebook, and then there's going to be courses and all these kinds of things online. So that will be linked onto my website shortly. And and then there'll be a YouTube series coming. And again, like I'm really like trying to open myself to the format and welcome that into my life. And it is coming that way. So it will be exciting.
It's exciting. Lots of exciting stuff. and great information for people right now. So no, we'll make sure we put, excuse me, all of that in the show notes and all that kind of stuff. And it was so nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. It's been a while since I've done a podcast video cast. So I really really this format, and it was lovely to connect with you both.
Good. You as well. So and the last question that we asked, which is Jewcy. Let's just say that is, it's a very serious question. Okay. If you were a juice, what would you be and why?
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, juice. Well, we just bought a juicer, so this is exciting. I feel like we can create any juice now that we want. But the one that recently was exciting in my mouth was cherry juice.
Oh, that's a new one. We haven't heard.
Yeah, it's very new. It was very exciting and tart and alarming at times. But it was very good. It was very invigorating.
Just pure cherry.
Cherry juice, yeah. Yeah, it was very wild.
Oh my god, it sounds orgasmic. It really does.
It's there's definitely no experiences in my mouth, so I like that.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, again, thank you so much, Tanille, for giving us your time, and I wish you all the best, and I look forward to following your journey and to see all the exciting things that you do and come out with, and we'll hopefully help some people, even just one person, with this chat. So
absolutely.
Yes, thank you. So good to see you.
Stay thank you, everyone.
Yes, no problem. And we'll talk later.
Okay, take care. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Thanks.